is it enough to live on? Is it something more of like a side hustle? Is it something you want to go farther into? Like is it your dream to be, at a World Cup, being a referee? Where do you want to go with this? Give me some deets.
So once I realized, I think I touched on this earlier in the podcast. Once I realized I wasn't going anywhere with playing soccer, I was a select player at the time. I ended up dropping down to recreational, and just to diversify my skill sets, I wanted to learn about refereeing. I remember my dad got pretty up there in the refereeing ranks, so he took me under his wing, and I was able to get a license at the age of 12, which was allowed at the time. If you have parental supervision, if you're refereeing with an adult, you could referee at the age of 12. I think now, because of child labor laws being more strict, it's 14. And personally, I would recommend not starting before 14. Just because, especially in doing those youth games, they can be pretty difficult. You have a lot of parents treating their kids' competitive game like it's a World Cup game, being extremely immature. You never know. You've always been good towards the referees.
I'm usually the person that goes, like, even if it's my team that gets called against, I'm the guy that's like, no, that was right. Like, no, that was a good call.
Yeah, I remember you were very respectful
about being like, because it's so easy to be, oh, what the heck? Come on, like immediately react like it's against you. But most of the time, my mind's like, no, that was right. Like, I want to complain, but I can't because it was the right call. So. Continue. I appreciate you saying that, by the way. I pride myself in being as objective as anybody can be. No one can be completely objective, but I pride myself in being able to be more objective than most, especially when it comes to the refereeing.
So. I remember exactly. You summarized it perfectly. You always, played the middle role between referee and a complaining player we had on our team. So as I progressed, I started improving a lot more, and when I was 16, I think that was the best year I had in refereeing. There was a little competition going around in our conference, which was American River Soccer League, where we had like a referee of the year competition. I ended up winning that, being named one of the best youth referees in our area. So there was definitely the potential there. I was being invited to various tournaments, like regional tournaments, like youth showcases and whatnot, and just declining them because I was really focused on my studies. I wanted a more stable career path. At the time, refereeing was seen as just contract work, as something that you do. Even if you were a World Cup referee, like I think they're given like $50,000 for all that work, all that training, all that preparation.
Really? They don't? That's how much World Cup? That's how much they make?
Yeah, they make about $50,000 in those 3 months that they spend training and actually doing those games is about $50,000. So it's not a lot considering how much effort goes into it. And so the MLS, I'd say like 5 years ago, wanted to create an organization that pays referees a salary where it's a full-time job, basically. That means throughout the week they're doing trainings, and then afterwards, on the weekends they'll get like one game usually. So those guys are given, usually upwards of $100,000 salary. And there's ways to get up there by doing like USL, like Sac Republic games, and doing college games and being noticed and moved up. So that's the best way to progress. But for me, I was so focused on school, finding a more stable career path in engineering, which is possibly another topic we could discuss in a future pod. I know you have some interest in my field.
Oh, absolutely.
So I ended up taking that route. And then once I moved back to my hometown about 2 years ago, after, doing youth games inconsistently here and there, I was introduced to refereeing high school soccer, and again, fell in love with refereeing a lot. Especially this past year, as I dedicated a lot of my free time to doing high school games. And these are much higher level games than ordinary youth competitive games. Especially nowadays, compared to when we were younger, being a competitive player used to mean something when we were younger. Like, these guys were elite athletes. They sometimes played for Olympic development programs. But now anyone, as long as you have money, you can go and create your own comp club tomorrow. We could go create Tim and Armeen FC tomorrow if we wanted to, and find a bunch of kids and say, all right, you guys are comp players now. That's all it takes. So there's a huge dilution of talent. But at the high school level, you get the cream of the crop. You get the kids who are academy players, who are playing for like Sac Republic Academy, playing for San Juan. They're being looked at by top universities in the area. And so the speed is much different. The pace of the game and the difficulty is a lot tougher. And you have the fans who are paying to be there. So you can't really deal with them the same way you would in youth soccer. You're supposed to, I mean, you do deal with a lot more abuse being thrown your way, as long as nothing steps over the line of like racial or like specific personal attacks. I mean, there's really not much you can do. So the atmosphere is completely different. There's a lot of energy. This was my second year doing high school soccer refereeing, and I ended up getting 3 playoff games, which I was happy to make it that far. One of them was extremely heated. We definitely took a lot of abuse throughout the game. We had to end the game early because I'm not going to say which schools they were. It's a little confidential, but maybe off the record if you ask, I'll let you know.
Okay. Yeah, off the record, you can tell me.
Nowhere near where we went to school. I'll just say that. We ended up having to throw out a coach. He was refusing to leave. The fans were on us, so we had to call the game and be escorted out by the athletic director and the principal. And just the rush of blood I had coming home was insane. I just loved the atmosphere. I just love being a part of that, and it's something that I definitely want to keep doing going forward. In terms of moving up and doing higher level games, I've been approached by people who said if you have interest and want to get into possibly doing like Sac Republic games in the future, or working towards that, let me know. But it's still 50-50 for me. I mean, I like doing what I'm doing. I love just refereeing for the kids, to be honest. So we'll see. I mean, it definitely is a goal to referee at the World Cup, something that almost every referee aspires to do. Not all of them are, just out there for the money. So for me, it is a little bit of both. I call it a side passion, just something that instead of sitting in the office where I do and working overtime, I love going outside, getting the exercise, interacting with people, and being around my favorite sport. So going forward, I think that's the path I'm going to take, but we'll see. If I advance to doing college games, semi-pro and whatnot, I'm happy to speak about that as well in the future.
That's so cool. I made a friend recently who is a high schooler, and he had just started soccer reffing, and I was like, tell me about these games, and he was and so I used to work at a gym, and so I had families come in, so I got to know families, and so there was his mom would come in and work out too, and I would ask her about how he's doing, and he would come in sometimes and we would chat, and she used to be like, yeah, the whole reffing thing is really he almost doesn't want to do it anymore because he's so stressed out about having dreaming about games going wrong, or dreaming about things happening and having to throw people out and questioning your decisions. And I was just wondering if you had any of those experiences early on where maybe you couldn't sleep because you were just so stressed about reffing a game, or when did that kind of subside, or you just eventually you're like, I don't care anymore, it just doesn't bother me, the parents yelling at me, how did you deal with some of those ref nightmares sort of?
They're definitely, you're spot on there. The turnaround rate for referees is insane. They estimate that kids who begin refereeing, they're certain soccer clubs, there's about a 50% turnover rate for next year. That means they'll lose half the refs just because of abuse they take, or just because of the stress that comes with the position. And I'm definitely happy if you or anyone listening to this is in the same boat and just want someone to talk to after games. I'm more than happy to take those calls. I do that with other friends. I always offer it. I've definitely gotten phone calls close to late in the middle of the night from some of my friends who are like, why did I make this call? Or did I do the correct thing? Or what should I have done here when dealing with this? So I do have a lot of experience, and I'm willing to chat. Just even if you want to chat, go for it. In terms of specific calls, the stereotype is that, refs don't care, they're getting paid, they'll just go home and whatever. This referee doesn't care. But we overthink our calls a lot. Even after it's over, we hate making mistakes, and we admit to it when we do. On the professional level, mistakes happen even when we're human beings. There's VAR now video assistant review, which helps out a little bit, but that's a whole separate discussion. There's still crazy mistakes that are made, and on the FIFA level, they'll put you in a room with other referees as part of that training that I was mentioning, and they'll go over every single call you made that's controversial.
Oh, wow.
In a room with 20 people, and they'll discuss it like as a panel, like what did the referee do, where was his position, all this. I've been in classes for high school refereeing where we sit down for 2 hours and we break down like calls from like professional games. So there's that. And then for me, I'd say getting the first red card, definitely you're always thinking about it, especially since I was like much younger. I was thinking about it, and like I always like to think, how could I have avoided that situation? Like, could I have called it tighter earlier on?
Oh, so you almost feel like you had to give the red card at the end, and you're like, was I partly responsible for letting it escalate?
Yeah, exactly.
Where I had to give this. That's, oh man.
Thankfully, I haven't had to give many, but like there was one I gave this year, for example, where it was a close, heated game, and I thought I controlled it pretty well. It was a JV game too. Sometimes the JV games are more heated than varsity. But
little scrappers.
Yeah. So the game, last second goal, kid taking his shirt off, all that. Like the drama unfolded. And then after the game, one of the players went after my assistant referee and just started cussing her out. Like out of nowhere. I don't know where that frustration came out of. So I have no choice. I have to red card this kid. But you always think, like if I had given more yellow cards earlier in the game, would I have avoided that? Those are the thoughts that always cross my mind whenever I get a red card. Is I try to think about what I could have done differently, if that makes sense. But usually it's gone to the point now, after a while, I know it's really tough at first for your friend if he's tuning in right now. It's tough at first. There's things that are thrown your way that you're going to take personally. But at the end of the day, it's just a sport, and whatever people say, sometimes they're just there's things going on in their personal lives. Could be a billion other reasons why they're angry at you, and it has nothing to do with you at all. So those comments, they might circulate for an hour or two for me. Sometimes if I hear like about, like you're incompetent or whatever, like those comments will circulate in my head for like an hour or two at this point and just go away. I'm like, all right, on to the next game. I got another game to referee. At one point, I had so many games this winter that I didn't have time to think in between them. It was like, all right, go on to the next one. Where am I going tomorrow? Okay, I got to drive here now. So that's how I approach it. And likewise, I'm opening up the floor if any referees out there want to chat and vent to me about anything they're experiencing.
That's really good. Yeah, I think a part of me would like to think that I could handle it, but then it's just a whole nother animal. And just, when people yelling stuff at you, it's almost like, I feel like a lot of athletes these days with Twitter, they read all their, and I think it's the dumbest thing any pro athlete could ever do is to have a Twitter. I would get rid of my Twitter immediately if I was a professional athlete, because you have just these random Joe Schmoes from wherever living in their, I don't know, trailer parks or God knows where, dealing with God knows what, tweeting you saying like, you're just garbage, you're trash, you're an abomination. Like people just say whatever because they're behind their computer screens. There's no consequences for them saying whatever they want. Obviously, they would never say that to you in person, probably.
Oh yeah,
swear up on them, and they wouldn't. People just act differently when they're behind a computer screen, and so it's tough too because you're just taking all this garbage. People, you're incompetent, you're stupid, you're
Especially in a mob setting, like you're saying, people become empowered when they're in a group of people all saying the same thing.
Yeah, because they know that you're not going to like necessarily, you have a job. You can't just walk off the field and go start beating the crap out of them. They kind of know that they're sort of protected and they can kind of get away with it. And so then it gives people license to just, you're stupid, incompetent, terrible. And I'm like,
oh yeah,
I don't know.
Heard it all.
I like to think that I'm pretty mentally strong, but you hear enough trash, over time, it can definitely affect you. And I would definitely, I'd probably have to do like affirmation meditations after each game just to like get some
That's a good idea.
feedback going.
Yeah.
Because you get all this negative coming in. And that's why it blows my mind when any players have Twitter feeds, because I'm like, that's garbage, man. Like you're just gonna, you're just getting negative. You're just gonna be reading all this negativity that has nothing to do with you whatsoever. But it's human nature to like take that in and evaluate that, because our brains are always looking for, how to survive, and how to survive. We sometimes take input from places where it shouldn't come from. And so I've always wanted to try reffing. Like I had to ref one time because when I coached soccer, I remember, being a sort of ref for a couple of scrimmage games we had. And I remember being like, this is kind of fun. I kind of enjoy it. I'm wanting the ball to go out of bounds so I can make a call. I kind of got antsy when there wasn't a call to make. I was like, no, I want something to happen so I can make a call, and kind of lean on what my gut was telling me. And so it's something I definitely consider trying in the future.
It's good money. I don't think I answered the money part either. I did for the professional level, but since, you or other people might be interested as well in refereeing, it's up to a certain amount. It's untaxed, which is really nice. So keep that in mind. And then I'd say for younger kids, it's fantastic money too, because you're getting like 25 to 30 a game on average for like about an hour's worth of work, which is brilliant. Like it's great money. At the high school level, it's a little different. You break that threshold of where you get taxed really easily, just because you're doing so many games. But you get $150 for a JV and varsity game.
Do you get cash?
40-minute halves. No, it's all electronic, direct deposit. They don't do cash anymore. They did when I first started. That's why I love doing tournaments, because it was all under the
cash on
under the table. Yeah,
those are the days.
But yeah, I highly recommend it. Even, people referee for different reasons. If you love the sport, then fantastic. You'll progress and you'll learn a lot more. But if you're doing it for the money, I know a lot of people that do it that way too. Treat it like a job, show up on time, and your signers will love you. They'll give you more and more games. So definitely something to look forward to. And
50% dropout.
Hope to see you out there.
You'll have a pretty good job of getting your job back the next year, And
oh yeah, we're always short referees.
We'll see. I don't know. I'm someone who struggles with stress, and so I worry that I would get too stressed out. But maybe over time, I'm sure you would learn to just be able to have something like, oh, I've done this before, done this a bunch of times. I know how it goes. I know how it works. Things are going to happen that I can't control, but you kind of know. You've been in it enough times to where you don't have as much of that initial anxiety, I'm sure, after a while, because you're just confident in yourself. You're like, no, I know what I'm doing. Whatever happens, happens. So give me
more so I've seen it before. Yeah.
You've probably seen so many scenarios that you're like, yeah, there's that confidence level of doing it over and over again. I'm sure eventually kind of breaks down some of that anxiety. I think you might be frozen there. Oh, he's back. You're back. Sorry, you froze for a second there. So I have one last question for you
this time.
Probably gonna be our last question of the day. So I want you to give me your best reffing memory of a bad call you made. Like you're like, man, I totally missed this call. I can't believe it. I would love to hear that story, and then I would love to hear your the call that you made that was like you saw what no one else saw, and I don't know what the positive call looks like for you. If you remember a lot of your positive calls, I don't know if it's just you probably remember the negative ones. I'm sure a lot clearer. But
yeah.
Give me that positive, or maybe it's a game that you did really well in. That you're like, I reffed that game super well. I had it under control. I had it going on.
Okay, I'll discuss those. It's a good question. There's one. There's bad calls I make every season, and I'm always thinking about those. But there's one that really stands out. Just because there was so much going on, I had no idea what to do. It was a U16 girls game. I want to say my first year of college. I was like 18 or 19 at the time. And it was a closely battled game, I think 1-1. And it went towards the end of the game. There was an incident where the goalkeeper and a forward, they collided. And I was in a really bad position to see if there was a foul, if they, was it a 50-50 ball? From where I was standing, I saw no egregious contact aside from a 50-50 challenge. So I let play continue, and the goalkeeper was down, and the team ended up scoring on an empty net. And so obviously one team was really upset that, oh, like our keeper's down, like he should have blown the whistle and stopped the game for the injury. And then the other team's like, well, no, like, why
Yeah, you
should we
can't.
stop the
There's 50
game?
fifty.
Yeah, we had a goal scoring opportunity. So looking back on it, I probably, and I've discussed this with a lot of people, it is youth soccer. I probably should have emphasized safety first and just blown it dead right there. Um, so what that there's a goal scoring opportunity? It's just it's this law. It's one of the unwritten laws of common sense that you should like provide like the most fair solution to whatever's going on. And so in that situation, I think what would have been most fair is just stop the game, check on the keeper's safety, and just do a drop ball wherever I stopped it, whether that's in the penalty area or, I mean, at the time it was allowed. The laws have changed a little bit, but doing a drop ball like inside the penalty area or wherever it was. So that was a big mistake I made that changed one team going to the championship game and one, going home. So I was kind of
Wow.
bummed about that. I'd say the best game that I refereed would have to be this past season. It was between two first division teams, and it was a JV game between Folsom and Whitney. This game really stands out to me because of the amount of running that was involved. I know a referee had done these two teams earlier in the season. And I talked to him and I said, "Oh yeah, I'm refereeing these two teams too." And he said, "Okay, get ready to run," because I had my clock, like my Fitbit or GPS, or I don't remember what it was, but he said he ran about 5 miles that game. And I was in the middle for this
Oh.
game. So I was just running like crazy throughout the game, trying to get in the right positions. These are two really good teams. There were two calls in particular that I think I handled pretty well. One of them was they were trying to run a trick play on a corner kick. And one of the teams tapped the ball, or one of the players tapped the ball to like say, like, hey, come get the ball for me. I don't know if this makes sense, but usually sometimes one player will pretend to like, gently, lightly touch the ball and be like, okay, actually you come take the corner. And then the player that comes takes the corner just starts dribbling.
Oh, I see.
No one noticed this going on. I caught it out of the corner of my eye. My assistant referee was just waving his flag frantically. I ignored it, or not ignored. I waved him down. I let the play finish, and then I had a conversation like, "Hey, I saw a touch right before that. They were running a trick corner kick, I think." And some of the players came over. They were confused, like, "Why are you stopping the game?" And I was like, "I'm just making sure, that I saw the touch and all that, and this is what you guys were trying to do." And they're like, "Yeah, it was a trick corner. We run this every game and whatnot. Like, why are you guys stopping the game?" And I was like, "No, I allowed play to continue, and you guys didn't score." So that's why afterwards I came back to make sure my assistant knew that you guys are running this trick play, so I don't call it again. So there was that call, and then there was a penalty shout that I think I got correctly in that same game. There was the goalkeeper for Folsom came out, and the Whitney player chipped it over him and missed the goal. But there was a little bit of contact afterwards. And I didn't think that was enough to call a penalty kick, especially since the player had already taken the shot. And the player's natural momentum is what, caused the collision. It wasn't the keeper coming out and taking out the forward or anything. So this was on the far side from the Whitney coaches. And after the game, they politely came and asked me, "What did you see over there?" I explained it. They accepted it. 1-1 game. Everyone went home happy, even though it was supposed to be a tough, hard-nosed game. I thought I handled it pretty well. And I think that was a big reason why I ended up getting playoff games later in the season.
How does that work? How do they decide who gets the bigger games? Is there a stat where they, this percentage of calls you got right over the course of this tournament, so you get in? Or is it just kind of like, they like this guy more than the other?
I think it's more in line with that. Like, you can't analyze every single call referee makes. A lot of the games are recorded, which is cool. I remember I did a game at Oak Ridge, and this guy in the stands, he was very generous. He ended up giving me a copy of the tape just so I could see like myself and how I position myself and what my body language is like. It helped a lot. But yeah, there's no stats about correct and incorrect just because it's so subjective and it's at the high school level. So they're not going to, there's so many games. Both guys and girls are in the same season. So it's just not possible. So there's evaluations based on, since I'm a little younger and newer, I was doing a lot of games with more veteran and seasoned referees.
Mm.
One of which was an MLS referee who was just trying to stay fit during the off season. One game I did with like a USL referee who brought like the headsets, like the FIFA ones that you wear. I should have taken a picture,
Oh,
but
that's cool.
it was so fun using those.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't even think about that.
So that's
What
based
would you guys
on.
say? Would you guys be like, hey, did you see that call? Like you'd talk to your sideline guy and be like, hey, sideline one, did you see that? That
So
kind of
there's a whole communication system that goes on with those headsets that it's like way above my head. This was just like he broke it down to the most basics for us, just so like we could like communicate. So we would talk to each other before signaling anything. And this is really important in the professional level because if you like signal and then you like change your signal, the fans catch on to that and then they have a sense of doubt in your calls. So there's a lot that's being said over the microphones, like corner, 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 and then like the center referee will be like, yep, corner, and then you point. Or what I would do whenever there's an offside, I'd go off, off, off so that the referee knows to like turn around and look at my flag. So there's a whole communication system that goes on that's way more advanced than what I've been taught, but it was a good experience for sure.
That's cool. That's awesome.
So yeah, to answer your question, word of mouth, I think from more seasoned referees, and sometimes there'll be the assigners coming and evaluating officials. They drop in randomly here and there, checking out games. There's also complaints too that are always thrown around, and there was a couple on my games too. Luckily, all of them where I was an assistant. There would be someone lodging a complaint about the center referee, like all of these things happen, and I'd have to like provide my take to the assigner. So there's a lot of opportunities to evaluate the referees, and then based on that, they give you playoff games. Obviously, there's a certain pool of referees that are doing like the Jesuits and the number one seeds and whatnot. But yeah, overall, that's how it works.
Would you get dinged kind of in people's minds if let's say you had to give a red card in a game, or maybe, you know, oh, wow, Armeen had to give 6 red cards this year as opposed to, Billy Joe over here who only had to give 3. Shoot, is that, oh man, do they take that into kind of an account? Like, oh, maybe he doesn't have as much control because, you shouldn't be giving out this many cards, or any of those things looked at as far as judging your.
It could play a part. I mean, if you have multiple games where you're giving red cards, then someone will be like, okay, something's wrong here. They'll start
You're just like
calling up.
you're like
Yeah.
talking trash to the players, like, yo, you're garbage.
Yeah.
You're like, hey coach, yeah, go back home. You're done. You're a loser. Go back home to your broken marriage or something.
Yeah, if you're being unprofessional, someone will report it. I guarantee you that, first and foremost. But yeah, if you're giving a lot of red cards in different games and you're not really able to justify it, then that'll be looked at much more closely. But if you're giving like 3 in the season in different games and they're warranted, like because you have to write a report every time you give one out.
Right.
So if you're justifying it, you're referencing the proper language in the book as to why you gave the red card, and nothing's really egregious about it, then no, it shouldn't hurt you at all if you give like 6 red cards versus 1. Everyone has a different style. Some people are more by the book. Some people will try to control the game with fouls over cards. Every referee is different, so it's a case-by-case kind of thing.
Is there something that for you specifically will trigger you to maybe give a card quicker than so another referee, maybe they have, they really don't like to hear swearing. And if there's any swearing, they're like pulling out a card immediately. And maybe you're like, I'm a little more lenient on that. But if this is said, or if this is done, I'm pulling out my card immediately. Like, I'm sure everyone has their own little sort of mini moral code, if you will, as far as like what is sort of like, no, that's never going to happen in my game. I'm immediately carding. Do you have something like that? Do you have something that like someone
triggers me,
that triggers you more, that like someone else would probably be like, wouldn't give a card on that, but you're like, no, my games, my rules, if this happens, this guy's getting carded or whatnot?
I'd say for me it would be elbows to the head and neck area, I'm very sensitive about that. I think especially with a lot of emphasis on concussions and head injuries coming out, I think if I see any sort of elbow, it's going in the book for sure. Um, then the intent becomes important too. Was it inadvertent elbow? But yeah, the card's coming out for sure. I'd say that's one. And I look closely at challenges on the goalkeeper too. Now, I don't think the goalkeeper deserves special treatment in terms of like going into tackles and stuff, but if his safety is being endangered, same as the other point I brought up earlier, then I'm quick to pull out the card there too. Like if someone's lunging in on the goalkeeper with their studs showing, then that's that they're gone, you know? Like there's no reason to do that.
Mm.
And I've had that case actually happen in a lot of like in some younger games. I had like a U10 game where player was just clumsy but went in with their cleats and ended up injuring the goalkeeper. And I mean, some referees are like, oh, well, they're 8, 9 years old, I'm just going to talk to them or whatnot. But no, I mean, I gave a yellow card. I mean, it's a red card if they're older. And I explained to their coach, hey, you know, I'm trying to develop like good playing habits for your players. If the age was older, the color of the card might be different too. So player safety in those situations are things that really trigger me. But otherwise, like swearing and whatnot, I mean, I'm more lenient unless it's like clearly abusive language being directed to me, then there's nothing I can do about that. Then I have to send you off.
Hmm. Okay, that's okay. Head and neck area with the elbows, and then goalkeeper collisions are what your point of
dangerous
would be.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Well, thank you for coming on today, Armeen. Thank you for sharing
Absolutely.
all that. I know that I'd said about 20 minutes ago that my last question would be that, and my last question would be that, but then I keep thinking of more questions. I'm like, oh wait, I kind of want to ask this. I'm curious about this. So that's fine. We have no specific time limit here. So
yeah, go for it.
So I've run out of questions now, but honestly, like super fascinating. All that referee stuff was really. I'm sure I feel like we'll do another one on that at some point because I feel like you have a lot more to share and a lot more stories to share when it comes to refereeing. So I think that could be definitely a future topic. And also your job. I'd love to do a pod on your job.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Fascinating. In fact, I'm probably going to do a pod here pretty soon. I'll probably just do a solo one. I want to do the top 10 ingredients to avoid in foods. I'm going to break down my top 10. These are the ingredients to look out for that you should be avoiding, kind of thing. So, and that kind of goes along a little bit with sort of you're not focused so much on food ingredients, more on chemicals,
right?
Going to products, which is I'm also passionate about as well. But Armeen, I'm gonna let you go. But don't hang up. I'm just gonna stop the recording here. But just want to give a shout out to anyone who's listening right now. I just want to thank you for listening. This has been Topics with Tim, my good friend Armeen here. Thankful that you came on the show today, and I'll say I loved it. I enjoyed.
Thank you for having me.
All the conversation, awesome. I love it, man. It gets me jazzed just hearing about people like just digging into stuff like this is so cool. Yeah, so if you are watching right now, you want to be on a pod, let me know. Like I said, I said this earlier in the show. I know that you have something that you're passionate about, something that you're knowledgeable on, and I want to hear about it. I want to pick your brain about it, and I want to learn about it as well. So please hit me up if you want to be on a pod. I'd love to have you on. I mean, I'm sure this will not be our last pod. We'll definitely have more in the future.
Definitely not.
Yeah, we'll definitely have more. I'm going to go ahead and end the pod right now. Like and subscribe. I'm going to stop this recording. Love you guys.
Have a good night, guys.
How do I actually stop the recording here? Oh, there we go.